Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do consider supporting the channel via PayPal or Patreon. You'll find the links in the video description. I'm going to show you a sparkling game played in the King's Indian Defence. That's not an opening that I cover very often, probably because in the top tournaments it's not as popular as it used to be. Well, for various reasons. You know, it is risky. It is very risky when you play it with black. But in fact, this game was not played in a top event. It was played in an amateur tournament. In fact, a tournament played in Greece on the island of Kos. I've just returned from there. So this is the latest amateur chess organisation event. I was there analysing games, giving some training, giving lectures, playing simultaneouses. It's great fun. It's a holiday tournament, but the chess is still serious. But they're just wonderful events. In fact, the next ACO event is going to be held at the beginning of October on the Greek island of Crete. And it's an over 50s tournament. If you're interested, you can check out the link. I'll put the link at the top of the comments. But I would warmly recommend it. I was in Crete last October, and it's great fun. Really friendly tournament. Anyway, back to this game. So playing white, Fleischmann, who I believe is from Germany, and playing black, Kevin Winter, who is a proud Yorkshireman and is a lifelong King's Indian player. And he plays this one very well indeed. So here, bishop e2, and bishop g5 is the old Averbach system, which still has a very good reputation actually. But here white played bishop e3, which is quite a trendy line at the moment. And I mean, white can play this position in various ways after bishop e3, but very often white starts a kingside attack with either g4 or h4. One can play it simply more positionally with knight f3, but certainly, you know, a lot of players like to use these attacking moves. I mean, there are loads of ways that black can play this: e5, c5, knight a6. Knight a6 played by Kevin. A sound developing move. I mean, this knight might well come into the game, you know, after c5, but black can still play e5 and put the knight on c5 later. It just depends how white plays in this position. So knight a6 is quite flexible actually, because, you know, black has yet to determine what pawn structure he's going to go for. And here one can play h4, g4, knight f3, but g4 was played, so white's intentions are clear. You know, he's playing for a squeeze on the king side and, you know, maybe a kingside attack. But one can also play positionally after this, just to sort of squash black. So black needs to hit out, so c5. Okay, good move. The classical idea of countering a wing attack with play in the centre. And already we can see how tricky the King's Indian is tactically. I mean, the move perhaps one would like to play here is g5 to push that knight back. But then there's a very nice move, knight g4. That's a real upsetter. And after bishop takes, of course, you throw in pawn takes d4. And, well, after bishop takes here, it's an exchange of pieces, but that's quite a favourable one because black, you can see how quickly black has developed. And, well, for example, the game could go like this. Threatening a knight fork and bishop h5. And here, you know, white is struggling to develop. Obviously, that knight needs to hang on to the pawn. Black is ready to break with f6. There's also rook c8. I mean, this is already quite a lot of fun for black. So after c5 correctly, white closed the centre with d5. Now black needs counterplay, so e6 starts to open up the middle of the board. And here, well, you know, if you advance with g4, then really, you know, you should push on again. It's hard to see what else white can do here. So g5. And here is already a critical moment in the game. And I think that's typical for a lot of King's Indian positions, that the critical moments can often come at a very early stage in the game. That doesn't suit all players. You've got to be prepared for that, and you've got to react accordingly. So, okay, here's my first question for you. How would you play here with black? Black to play. I'll have a quick slurp of tea. Cheers. Here, if you back down, then you're asking for trouble. That knight just blocks black's pieces. The rook can't move to the e-file. White, I mean, it's still a lot of play left, but white can build up on the king side and looks nice. Knight d7 is tricky, perhaps not so good. And here, actually, instead of taking, which could give black some time, in fact, just h4. This exchange here, you can see there's no f-pawn, and the king is weaker. And just playing for an attack on the h-file looks like a very good idea. No, the move after g5 is knight h5. That's a really important move. So basically, the knight just gets out of the way. The e-file is still clear. The bishop's diagonal is obviously open now. Okay, so here, and it gets out of the way, but I mean later on it could easily hop into the game via f4 at some moment. So white decided to take the knight. Now, here's my next question for you. If you were playing white, how would you play in this position? White to play. I think this is a very, very instructive game, actually, I have to say. Right, what would you do next? Well, in the game, white played queen h5. But that's a mistake. I mean, it looks nice to sort of throw the queen towards the king side, but actually, as we're going to see, it wastes a lot of time. And white should still be thinking about development, because the position is starting to open up. You can see here, but also the long diagonal. White has to think about development. Knight e2 is the best move. And actually, once that knight reaches h5, you can see it's reaching into black's position there and looking at that beautiful dark squared bishop. Then things start to get interesting. And if black takes on d5, trying to open things up, knight takes is important. Now, bishop g4, that at least holds the pawn for a moment. But and it's a very unclear position. But white is probably doing okay here. And a key move is actually rook g1. And not an easy move to spot. But the idea is to throw in knight f6. And actually the rook comes up to g3 and you can force the bishop out of the way. Still very unclear, but white should be all right there. But in the game, queen h5 was played, which looks very impressive, but actually, curious enough, with the pawn on g5, that kind of blocks white's pieces. And here, Kevin took the initiative with knight b4, an excellent move, obviously looking at these two squares. And that's really difficult for white. If white castles, then, well, that, black's attack is going to be absolutely huge. Or just taking on d5 and opening things up. So queen d1 played. E takes d5. And now, well, knight takes is the best try. I think white really needs to exchange pieces. But, well, I won't go into detail. But c takes d5 is a huge mistake. Okay. Again, your move. I'll have another little slurp of tea. You have a think. Black to play. What would you do with black? Curious enough, when I looked up this game on the database, in fact, this position has been reached before, played by A 2600 player, Kovalev, played in Dubai 2018. And here the move is c4. Yeah, that's a beautiful move. Ready to sink that knight in on d3. And yes, it is an octopus knight. Now, in that game I mentioned, back T against Kovalev, it went rook b1. And then b5. And this is a wonderful position for black. And in fact, something similar happens in the game. King d2 was played. Knight d3, there we are. It's a classic octopus knight on d3. And the octopus will decide the game. Threat to take here. King c2. And now b5. Now, you can see the similarity between Kevin's game and this game by Kovalev. Kevin said he was playing on general principles. He hadn't, this wasn't preparation. So, fair play. Well done. Absolutely spot on. So, the pawn is going to advance down the board and basically open up the king. Knight takes b5 played. Rook b8. Now the b file is open. And in fact, the game didn't last much longer. If the knight retreats to c3, in fact, rook takes b2 is mate already. a4. a6, knight is pushed. Rook takes b2, and the finish was rapid and very sweet. Knight e5, checkmate. King's chased up the board. I think, that shows what can happen if you get it wrong as white. And white got his comeuppance after, making this move g4. It all looks very wonderful. When you play this move, you think, what can possibly go wrong? But, if you get it wrong around here, you can see that black's counterattack is really strong. And this is like a huge vacuum. This has nothing to do with white's kingside development. Incidentally, looking at a lot of these amateur games over, the past couple of weeks, I did notice that, coming back to this position, some of the basic rules, excuse me, were flouted. That, Queen h5, grabbing material, but actually, my first instinct here would be develop. Got to concentrate on development. So yeah, it was just very interesting to see. Get all your pieces out before you go on the attack, basically. But anyway, very nice game by Kevin Winter. Let's leave you with that final position. Kevin, congratulations. Excellent stuff. And as I said, if you're interested in these ACO tournaments, the next one is in October, and I'll put the details in the comments. Thanks for watching.